All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We are 2 minutes beyond our starting point. I feel like 2 minutes is adequate enough to allow people to get in. Make sure that your audio is functioning properly, that you can hear us well. We have a lot of information and it's going to last the entire hour. My name is Melissa Culver and I am co-presenting with Karina Cantrell. She will introduce herself in just a moment. We're going to start by giving you an outline so you know what to expect during the presentation. This entire presentation is available to you as a takeaway, so you can either write that bit.ly down or you can take your cell phone and then snap a picture of it. But up in that top right corner where it says bit.ly/Zoom 2020 and then INTER, so the first syllable of intermediate, just abbreviated it for quick reference. And Karina dropped it into the chat. So if you are joining us from a computer, you can click on that and it will open up inside your favorite default web browser so that you have access to all of those resources. I'm going to move on to the next slide, but the bit.ly is in the chat and then it's going to pop up in our presentation several times throughout this presentation. So I'll introduce myself and then I'll let Karina introduce herself. My name is Melissa Culver. I am an instructional technology coach. I serve the 5 elementary schools here in the Clovis North area. I serve Fugman, Riverview, Copper Hills, Mountain View, and Bud Rank. My email address and my website are located there. So even after this presentation has finished, if you have questions, you're more than welcome to reach out and ask me questions. And then if you find any valuable resources on my website, you're more than welcome to use those. And Karina, go ahead and introduce yourself. Unmute yourself first. I do that too.
Oh, at least it wasn't 10 minutes worth of conversation. Right? Okay, I'm Karina Cantrell. I am one of the technology coaches in the Clovis High area. I work with the elementary schools and Clark Intermediate. I work with the elementary schools along with Kim Alto, and thanks for coming.
Thank you, Karina. Her insight is so valuable. There's no way I could have done this presentation without her. So thank you so much. As this presentation continues, please go ahead and add any questions into the chat. One of two things, we will either stop and respond to those questions right then and there, or depending on our sequence, we will address it later on in the presentation. Our last option is we'll swing back by at the very end and we'll try to leave maybe 6 to 8 minutes at the very end for Q&A. If the Q&A portion goes longer, Karina and I are willing to stay beyond that 1 hour marker just to answer those questions, but we want to try our best to close out the presentation on time for those who want to leave on time. So there's flexibility on our part for that. So please, please, please feel free to use that chat. If you don't have a piece of paper or a pencil handy, during a portion of this presentation, we are going to conduct it like it is a classroom, and you will be the students who are participating. So feel free to scramble around for a colored pencil, a crayon, a pencil, something to write with, and a scratch piece of paper. You're not obligated to do so. It's okay. Don't panic if you don't have that. You can just smile instead. This presentation is like a book overview. We will share way too much information, so you're more than welcome to review these notes even after the presentation is finished. At the very, very end of the presentation, I'm going to give you a web link so that you can access the recorded version of today's presentation. It usually takes about 5 days. Sherry Johnston does a phenomenal job of posting that material, and so we'll make sure that you have access to that link so you can access it later. And even though it might appear or feel overwhelming, my thought is when you go to a restaurant and you have that takeout option, or you don't eat all of your food, it's always nice to enjoy something another day. So I tend to think that when I provide you too much information, it's going to bless you on another day and you can come back and enjoy some of that yet again. Because this slide deck is over 60 slides long, In the future, when you're perusing the information, you can either use Control G or Control F on your keyboard in order to either go directly to a specific slide, Control G, and I want to go to slide 32. So I'm going to type 32, enter, and it would take you directly to that slide. Your other option is Control F, and then it's going to bring up a search box where you can search for specific words because you have no idea where in the presentation that item was located, but you want to go to that specific word. That would be the other way that you can find something quickly. And then I'm going to scoot to the next slide. Here's our outline for those of you who feel comfortable and at ease when you know where we're going and what to expect. We've tackled some of the housekeeping already. We provided the bit.ly inside of the chat space. We invited you to chat throughout the presentation. We provided you with our contact information. We're going to give you our emails again at the very end if you didn't catch that at the beginning. Karina's going to model a math lesson for us. We're going to be the students in her class. And then when she's finished with about 25 to 27 minutes of teaching, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to explain what it looked like on the teacher's end to use those resources. And we're going to explain where you can find those in the toolbar. And then we'll leave some time at the end in order for you to ask questions because we want to support you to the best of our ability with any questions that you have. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then Karina's going to step in and she'll take over as the teacher and she'll teach that lesson for us.
Okay, and remember to unmute yourself. Okay, so hey, I'm Karina Cantrell. We are doing a fabulous lesson today. Obviously, it's going to be condensed because no one wants to sit through a full lesson, right? As this loads. Okay, today is Wednesday, October 7th. We are making sure that your name is matching your badge so that, you know, our attendance is correct for today. You have something to write with, and you have the presentation link. We are going to go over multiplying to find area today. But first, we have our question of the day. It's a very important question. I know you've been waiting for it. Here we go. On this squirrel scale, how do you feel today? And I'm going to go ahead and start a timer. That is way too loud. I'm going to stop that timer. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push out a poll to you. So here we go. Here comes the poll. And you're going to tell me what sort of squirrel are you feeling today? I think I've felt like all of them over the last few weeks. Okay, about 10 seconds. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to end that poll. Now, because I put out a poll, I can actually show you the results. And for this one, I will show you the results. So here we go. Here are our results. Most of you, let's see here, 22%. It was a tie between number 8. Yes. Is that the, oh my goodness, it's the day is done stance of a squirrel? Number 5, yes, I have felt that. And number 4, yes, maybe we're excited for Halloween. Okay, super awesome. So we are going to go ahead and move forward now that we did our very important question of the day. We are going to look at a finding area. And we're going to start off with a question. So we are going to draw an array to model the multiplication problem, then solve the problem. So our problem is 4 times 6, and we're going to draw an array. So on your piece of paper, I would like for you to draw an array, or if you don't know what an array is, that's okay. You figure out how you would draw a model of 4 times 6. And we are going to do a 1-minute timer for this. about 10 seconds. And or it will freeze, and then I will just say time is up. How about that? Okay, so you go ahead and just hold up your paper and just kind of let me take a look and see what you put, so I can see where we're at. Oh my goodness, look at this. Okay, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and annotate on my screen. Your paper may look like this, it may not. This is one way that we might tackle this problem. Ooh, very nice. I love those X's. Okay. So here we go. I am going to tackle this problem. Let's see. I think I'm going to draw my array going this way. You know, like a real teacher, nice and lopsided, right? You know, heaven help everybody that can draw an absolutely non-lopsided array with your mouse, right? So I need 6 sections up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then I need to break it down into 4. So I need 1 more. Oh boy. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and label it. And then if I did my multiplication right, it should be 24. So that might be one way in which you solve this problem. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on. Let me clear this first. Okay, here we go. Next question that we're going to participate in is Jenny wants to find out the area of a rectangle shown, but some milk spilled on it. How can she find the area if she cannot count all of the squares? And it tells me here that the area of a square is equal to 1 square unit. Okay, so let's think about this. Let's focus in on these questions down here. So let me come down here. There we go. Okay, so in the chat, here's what we're going to answer first. What is the problem about? So in the chat, I would like for you to go ahead and answer what is the question about? I'm sorry, what is the problem about? If I can read it. Jenny wants to find the total number of squares. There are missing squares. There's ink on her rectangle. What was she doing? She's so messy, right? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our next question. What are we trying to find out? So in the chat, I want you to answer this. What are we trying to find out? Okay, so someone said we want to know the missing squares. Someone else said we want to know the missing squares, but we also want to know the total number of squares. And they used the word area, so they found that right there in the problem. Okay, let's move on to our very last question here, and is what information is important? What information is important? Okay, so we've said that the top The squares on the top and the squares down the side that we can see, those are important. The squares that are shown that are important. The ones that don't have the milk on them, absolutely. Okay, so those are some things that we need to consider when we're looking at this problem. Let's go ahead and move on. And now what I want us to do on our piece of paper is we're actually going to solve this. I want you to go ahead and answer the question. And I'm going to go ahead and get a timer up on our screen. Okay, about 5 seconds. Okay, that's our timer. Okay, so what's going to happen now is we're going to move on to the next slide, and then we are going to get you into a breakout room. So our question once we go into a breakout room is this. We are going to ask our partner, how did you get started? And then your partner is going to answer, I knew blank, so I blank. Okay, and I'll actually send this question to your group once you get into the breakout room if you forget. I know I always forget as soon as I turn around, but I'm going to go ahead and get you into a breakout room. You're going to answer this question, have everybody take a shot at answering it. You will be in there for 2 minutes. You will go in automatically. If it does happen to ask you to join, please press join, and then we will come right back. So let me go ahead. Okay, I will see you guys back. Okay, let's exit this. Shoot, I forgot to tell them about asking for help. Hello, I just put everybody into a breakout room. So I am going to go ahead and put you in one too. They've got about one more minute in it, and then they will be right back.
Karina, remember to unmute yourself.
Co-hosts, I love it. Okay, you can hear me now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what I didn't ask you guys to do, or I didn't go over before you left, I forgot to, is to go over the help button. So when you're in the breakout room, there should be a help button down towards the box, the bottom, and then students would click ask for help. Then this will pop up basically saying, are you sure you want to ask for help? Then you invite the host. On the teacher side, I get a pop-up that says, room number 2 needs your assistance. Are you going to go or are you going to decline? And so you have that choice too. Now, if you did not have a help button, you might want to check and make sure that your Zoom has been updated, as it may be an update thing. Okay. Okay, moving on. Normally, I would probably call on students to kind of report out what you did in your group, but we're going to save some time and not do that. We are going to instead do something else. Let me go ahead and pull this on over here. So PhET are math and science simulations, and I love PhET so much. But right now, I am going to do something called remote control. Remote control allows me, so Kelly, would you mind doing remote control with me? Okay, let me see. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Kelly. Kelly, I'm going to give Kelly access to control my screen essentially. Actually, you know what? Let me stop for let me go over this real quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our boxes out here to make an area. So this would be an area of 4. So 4 times 4 would be 4. If I wanted to make an area of 6, I could do that. So what I'm going to have Kelly do is I'm going to have Kelly make an area. She's going to control my screen and make an area of 10.
So right now, live on the screen, Kelly is away from Karina, but she has the capacity to control Karina's screen. And Karina clicked some buttons to make that happen. So you, the teacher, have the ability to hand off your mouse to a student in your classroom that you trust to model to other students.
Did I do that one or did you do that one, Karina?
You did that one. I haven't been touching the mouse.
Okay. There we go.
Okay, very nice. Now that is not, mine would have looked different. Give me a thumbs up if you think, if you did it, yours might look a little different. Okay, okay, yes, absolutely. I love that. So using a feature called remote control, you can have certain students come in and control your screen, move things around, manipulate things. It is not available on Chromebooks as of right now. But when I use it, basically all the names that are available that are not on Chromebooks come up, and then I just choose someone. I can still come in here and move things around, so it doesn't lock me out of my own computer, but it does give whoever I authorize remote control access to my screen. Okay, so let me go ahead and stop that remote control. Okay, and then let's go ahead and do one last thing here. So let me go like this. One other really neat thing is we can actually put links in the chat. So what I would probably do with this is I would go ahead and drop in the chat a link to our next activity. And one of the nice things about putting links in the chat is it is a very quick way to get students to an activity, to a website, things like that. And the other nice thing is it used to not work on Chromebooks, but as of this week, it is now working on Chromebooks. So what I would do is I would talk to students about, once I share this link, you are gonna click on it, you are gonna do the activity. The awesome thing is they're still in the Zoom. So they're not shutting the Zoom down, you're still there, they're gonna pop out and do an activity, and the Zoom is still there. So I would talk to them about coming down here and how do we get to our Zoom? Well, if we look here, I can see that the underline underneath the icon shows me that, let's undo that, shows me that there actually is a window that's open. It's just hidden. It's called minimized, but you know, sometimes we say hidden. And in order to get back to Zoom, when the timer rings, we need to click on that icon. So I don't want you actually to go and do this activity, but if you wanted to go ahead and click on that link to see that it can actually just take the kids directly there without having to go into Google Classroom or Clever and things like that. Okay, and last thing that we are gonna do, I am gonna wrap up and give you your very last poll. And we are going to, let's see, here we go. I'm gonna launch this last poll for you. Okay, that's everybody. Okay, thank you. We are getting it, but we may need a little bit more practice, and that's a-okay. I'm gonna go ahead and move this on over to Melissa, and she's gonna go over all of these features and hopefully answer your questions. I will be on the chat, so as you have questions, just pop them in the chat and I will be able to answer them for you.
All right, team. I unmuted myself, so you should have access to hearing me. I've got about 45 slides to blaze through in about 16 minutes. So like I mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, I'm going to go very quickly. I'm not going to stop and explain each thing, but your local IT coach, as well as Karina and myself, are available. And we also have teaching videos available inside of this lesson, inside of this slide deck. So those teaching supports are available for you, and we have trained coaches that are willing to help you. So in Karina's lesson, she modeled the idea of sharing her screen. She modeled the idea of breakout rooms, a countdown timer. She didn't model the idea of using more than one window, but we're going to give you shortcuts for that. We also used the chat. We did not use the reactions, but we will make sure that you have access to understanding where that is. I won't read this screen out loud to you, but these are the other things that we're going to cover in today's lesson. All right, and I'm going to move to the next slide. I already mentioned that I'm not going to explain everything, so reach out for support as needed because we would like to support you. If you missed the bit.ly, it's available at the top. Feel free to use your cell phone or write it down. It will pop up about 6 more times in the presentation if you missed it. I'm not going to read through each of these items. However, we are using this slide to clearly show you what it looks like to find each of those features inside of the breakout room. Sometimes in a breakout room, you allow the children the opportunity to click on the button that sends them into that breakout room. Other times you just instantly send your guests into breakout room without giving them the option of clicking yes. And so in order to make sure that you navigate that successfully, these slides are designed to pinpoint particular items where you would need to make those choices as the teacher so that it functions the way that you want it to function. There is a teaching video over on the left-hand side, so you can review that video that will explain how it works. Underneath the video, it says handout directions. That's actually a link. You can click on that later and then access those resources to explain that process. In order to broadcast to the breakout rooms, this feature is located at the bottom, and during our breakout session, Karina was able to broadcast. There was a blue box that appeared at the top that said, remember to click the help button if you need help. So if you need to rebroadcast the question, if you need to keep the students on task, if you need to support their learning in some way, then you can broadcast a message to that space. The students would ask for help. Karina modeled this for us. She showed us what it looked like. So the students have the ability to ask the teacher for help as they need it. Here's a list of ways that you might use breakout rooms. I'll pause to let you read that, and then I'll move to the next slide. So during both of our sessions here, we are sharing our screen, and in the process of sharing your screen, there are a few items to toggle on or off in order for that to function successfully. When you choose the share screen button, you will have a pop-up appear in front of you, giving you options to choose from. Because Karina and I work from either 2 or 3 screens, we have screen 1, screen 2, or screen 3 as an option to choose from. Below that, you would see a list of applications that are currently running on your computer. If you have OneNote or Outlook or Google Chrome or some resource that's open, you can run your screen from that application instead of the whole window. On that lower left region where it says number 3, please make sure that when you're sharing video, you remember to share the sound to go along with it, and you choose to optimize the screen sharing for that video clip. Karina and I get emails from teachers telling us that they're sharing the video, but the students can't hear it. And so we just politely remind them, you need to make sure that you click that box down in that bottom left corner in order for your audience to have the sound for that video file. Once you've made the choice that is best for you for that teaching experience, choose the share button in the bottom right corner in order to share that content with your audience. If you need more assistance when it comes to sharing your screen, we do have a video right here on the left that you can watch later in order to answer some of those questions so that you feel successful when you share your screen. The next portion of this video is going to talk about annotation and whiteboard. During the presentation, sorry, I have a 3D printer running in the background. You might hear that sound. And my print just finished, so it will stop humming. Karina, during the math lesson, was able to utilize the annotations during the math lesson in order to construct the array. She also drew a rectangle on the screen so that we would focus on specific questions, and then she was able to point our attention to the next question, and then so on. In order for this process to function successfully for you, we have 2 videos listed on the left that you can watch later. And we also provided an image down on the bottom so that you can see what that annotation toolbar will look like. We, the audience, were unable to see the toolbar that Karina was using during the presentation, but those are the features that she used in order to create the box, move the box, erase the box, and then draw that array. She also used a bright raspberry color, and so you have the ability to determine the color or the colors that would work best for you. If at any point you have questions, you're more than welcome to use that chat space. We can either address questions now or later. Don't feel shy. That space is available for you. During your presentation, when you are sharing your screen with your students, if out of nowhere someone starts drawing on your screen and you are quite surprised, oh me, oh my, it's happened. We've received emails and we've been able to help teachers with this. It's also happened during my lessons as well. I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. I didn't turn that off. And look at that, you're drawing on my screen. So in the upper toolbar that appears when you're sharing your screen, you would click the More button on the far right. And then once that menu cascades down, right now mine says Enable Annotation for Others. You would choose Disable Annotation for Others, and this would prevent your students from drawing on your screen during your lesson. Karina also modeled what it looked like to add picture-in-picture. She found those timer videos inside YouTube and then was able to minimize those videos and then drag them onto her presentation. We have more than one slide here explaining to you the process and what that looks like. You would first choose a video from YouTube, then one of 2 options. If you have there's item number 3 on the screen. I'll use my mouse to spin in circles. I'm talking about this one right here. I actually don't have this music box option, the little musical note inside Chrome. So if you don't have that, then one of our videos will teach you how to use the picture-in-picture extension in order to make this possible. You would then click the Activate Picture-in-Picture option, and then the video that you've selected will shrink, and then you can drag it from one location to the other. Also remember that you want to share the audio with your audience when you do that, if you want them to hear the embedded music or the final end tone. There are a few examples on that screen. I moved beyond that screen. We gave you options if you're working in chemistry and you want the students to see a reaction. If you are working with the concept of decomposition and you want the students to be able to see the watermelon decompose while you're writing on the PDF file. If you want anything to overlap, there are a variety of reasons why this is a handy teaching tool. You're not just limited to the countdown timer. We have 2 specific YouTube channels here where there are several videos to choose from. If you want a 30-second timer, there's one that's there, a 29-minute timer. I don't need to count down from 60, but there's literally a host of different numbers to choose from. And you can always just choose the 10-minute timer and then scrub it down to the perfect time. So you don't always have to look for exactly the right time in that timer in order to use it. There are other ways that you can use it as well. I'm not going to read through all of these, but I did want to mention the sign language interpreter as an option. If you have a child with special needs or any one of your students have unique needs and they need a sign language interpreter, one option is to have that sign language interpreter sign live inside YouTube Live, and then you could drag that YouTube Live video on the screen in order to provide that student with specialized instruction to meet their unique needs. I'll pause for 10 seconds for you to read that, and then I'll move to the next screen. If you are curious where other resources might be in order to use this feature, Karina has done a fantastic job of supplying us with a variety of different music videos so that this content can help your students transition from one item to another. Normally, I'm familiar with using these strategies in the classroom. When it's time to get your backpack, there might be one song. When it's time to turn in your papers, it's another song. When it's a time to go to the library, it's another song. But there are ways that you can also use it inside this distance learning model as well. Research consistently says that movement and reoxygenation increase attentiveness and information retention. So if you aren't using movement strategies in your classroom, it might be a good opportunity to infuse a little bit of movement from time to time so that the students reoxygenate and then they're well prepared for whatever the next item is on your agenda for the day. In our lesson, we didn't model the idea of working with 2 windows, but you are probably expecting your students to use 2 windows at one time. If they're watching you Zoom in one portion of the screen, maybe they're working in Google Docs in the other portion of the screen. These next 3 slides show you some shortcuts that you can share with your students. If a child is using a Windows-based device, or even adults, several adults use this strategy as well. Sometimes when we're minimizing a window, we don't want to wrestle with the perimeter or the outer boundary of that window and wait for the double-headed arrow to show up, and then you want it to be just the right size. Well, you can use your left index finger on the Windows button and hold it down, and then use your right index finger to tap, tap, tap any one of these arrows, and then the windows on your screen will quickly adjust to the left or to the right, or large or small. And then on the next screen, I also have Apple commands because not everybody is using a Windows-based device. So the Windows button is not an option. And so those students would use the command button instead. So command followed by each of those arrows for anybody who's using a Mac. And then lastly, for anybody who is using a Chromebook, they don't have a command button and they don't have a Windows button. So they would use Alt instead, holding down the Alt button and then tapping the plus button, or holding down the Alt button and then choosing one of those brackets. Those are the ways in which the students could achieve that on their end to seamlessly increase or decrease the size of those screens. And students may need to get out of full screen in Zoom in order to achieve this. So the students may need to choose Escape in order to decrease the size of Zoom in order to achieve this, or they might need to minimize Zoom if they're using maybe they have iReady on one screen and they have Math Notes on the other. But you're more than welcome to share these with your students to make their life a little bit easier. If my verbal tutorial did not make sense to you very well, then you're more than welcome to use any of the videos that you see on the screen here, and you can share these with your students in Google Classroom if needed, and they can use their own time outside of class to practice these strategies if they are struggling with screen options. In our lesson today, we've also been working with chat, and I just wanted to share a few features with you inside chat to help you feel successful. If that feature is completely turned off, make sure that you go into cusd.zoom.us in order to access the online settings. And then when you do that, make sure that chat is toggled into the on position. And then inside that chat space, you have the ability to choose whether or not the students have the ability to connect with everyone, or whether or not they only have the ability to connect with you directly. Some teachers choose to turn chat off completely, and some teachers allow the entire class to chat together, and some request that those chats only come directly to the host. So whatever maximizes engagement and understanding, use those strategies that work best for you. And then in order for you to understand that strategy, we also have a teaching video over here on the left that would walk you through those strategies to understand them with clarity. As the students are coming back to Zoom, then the line underneath Zoom would indicate that there might be more than one aspect. So the orange arrow is pointing to the Zoom icon on that bottom tray, and you'll notice how there's almost like a shadow that appears on one part of it. So when that happens, you could have two different windows that are open. You could have one window that specifically has the gallery of students, and then a second window could also have the chat. So if the children are navigating with difficulty, like, oh, I can't find the video, I can't find the chat, you can just let them know that one is hiding behind the other, and then they would need to click on that in order to gain clarity if needed. Reactions, we did not use this in today's lesson, but it is available to you anytime you're in Zoom. And if you have specific teaching signals within your class, if somebody needs to use the restroom, they can potentially use that, or a private chat, and then you know that that is a specific issue that they might have. Or you can even say odd and even numbers. If it's an odd number, give me a heart. If it's an even number, give me the confetti. You can use those in a variety of different ways. Opinion sentence. Should I write an opinion sentence? Should I write the introduction first? Should I use the conclusion first? The students can use these reaction tools, not just based on what they look like. You know, is it humorous? Is it really a thumbs up or an applause? You can rename these reactions in order to use them in your classroom for greater efficiency and engagement. Today in our lesson, we used polling. If you are unfamiliar with how to construct a poll, these images on the screen are designed to help you with that process. And on the right-hand side, we have a video designed to help you walk through the process. If you're unfamiliar with that process, we want you to feel successful if that's a tool that you would like to use. I've had one teacher use this as an assessment. As long as the students' names are typed appropriately into their Zoom window, they've signed in with their name, you can download that data to have access to it if you choose to use it as a mini assessment. You can also use it to gain clarity on whether or not the students are familiar or unfamiliar with the content, their opinions on any specific teaching idea. Spotlight, pinning a video and rearranging the gallery. Zoom recently came out with some updates so that you have the ability to drag specific windows around. When it comes to teaching, maybe you have 6 specific students that you know you're going to call on because their presentation is next. And so you want to adjust their video tiles because you're going to call on them first, second, third, and so on. Or for attendance purposes, I have one teacher who has the students rename themselves each day, and they're also supposed to put their number. And after the students have come in and she has given them a small independent activity, she drags and drops the students into order for attendance purposes based on their numbers. So you can use it in a variety of ways in order to rearrange the tiles. You literally just click on that face, move it over, drag it, drop it into spot so that it's organized in a way that makes sense to you. You can also pin or spotlight if a child's going to present for 2.5 minutes and you don't want to lean forward and pinch your eyebrows together while you're looking at that little itty bitty picture of a child, you can actually pin or spotlight a specific student while they're presenting, so it's easier to see them. PowerPoint draw tools. In today's lesson, Karina used the annotation features inside Zoom in order to draw on the screen. However, if PowerPoint is a go-to strategy for you, a go-to application, PowerPoint has built-in drawing tools. As you are sharing your presentation, pardon me, inside PowerPoint, there is an almost invisible toolbar down in the bottom left corner. The third button in, not the left arrow, not the right arrow, but the pen tool has some. You have one singular pen, but multiple colors. You can choose different colors if you want to, highlighter, eraser, or the laser pointer. And you can use that as a strategy to draw directly on the screen. Now you might be curious, why would I choose the PowerPoint drawing tools instead of the Zoom ones? If you choose to draw in PowerPoint and then you finish that presentation session, all of your notes are still attached to the original PowerPoint. So if you need to continue that lesson the next day, all of your notes are still sitting in the presentation and you can pick up where you left off. You also don't have to search for a different toolbar of some kind, because that toolbar is just living right there in PowerPoint if you choose to. And for those of you who are teaching iReady, we have hundreds of math PowerPoints that are ready to go. So you do not have to construct a PowerPoint for every single lesson. It's already right there ready for you to go and accessible. The remote control feature was used in today's lesson, and Karina had Kelly take over her screen. In order to achieve that, you must go into the settings in the online version. So in your web browser, you would go to cusd.zoom.us. You would need to turn that feature on, and then during your session in your toolbar, it looks like a mouse right here where the arrow is pointing. You would click right there on remote control, and then a list of students would populate, and you would choose the singular student that you want in order to use that feature live on the screen. And then once that child is finished with the task that you have given them, then make sure that you turn that feature off so that they don't take over your entire presentation. And then Karina was mentioning that she still had the power to use her own mouse, even though she had handed off control to Kelly. It's not like her mouse will stop working. It's almost like both mice have semi-equal power in that session once those responsibilities have been handed off. We clearly have not answered every question that's out there, and so we want to make sure that you know where to find additional answers. If the students are unfamiliar with how to update their software, or if you don't know how to update your software, we have a video right here live on the screen on the top left. If your students are unfamiliar with how to change their name, like this is something they have to do every day and they're getting tired of changing their name every day, well then here's a strategy you can use so that it's changed, it's stuck, and they won't have to do that every day. And then the last item down on the bottom right is clearing the cache. If you or your students are ever having problems with Zoom, sometimes clearing the cache is one of the first remedies, or restarting the computer is another critical remedy. So encourage your students to do either of those, or you can do either of those in order for Zoom to function properly. In addition to that, on the online resources, online learning resources website provided by Clovis Unified, provided by Curriculum Instruction and Accountability, we have a lot of videos that are designed to answer your questions. So we've dropped that link right in there, and it will take you directly to the Zoom questions. So this is either downloadable content as a PDF, or it's a direct teaching video that will help you navigate any of the questions that you might have. I believe this is the last portion before we get to the chat and answering the questions and then giving you our contact information. Accessibility is designed to help either you or your students make sure that you have maximized accessibility. If you find it difficult to read the chats because the language is quite small and you're not sure where your readers are and you don't want to lean in and get a neck ache, you can actually increase the size of the text for that chat space. And you can also turn on closed captioning. Even right now in our session, I can click a button right now. And as I'm speaking into the microphone, you'll notice that live on the screen, you have access to that text appear on the screen. So not only does Google Slides offer this feature live at no extra cost, PowerPoint offers this feature as well, and then Zoom would also offer this feature as well. So any of your students who are fairly new to learning the English language, having the words break out bit by bit live on the screen would be helpful for their language transition. And then also for students who are hard of hearing, that closed captioning feature is also helpful. So the next few slides, we're going to talk about where to find those. If you specifically want the closed captioning to happen in Zoom, because let's face it, you're not going to be in PowerPoint the whole time or Google Slides the whole time. If you need that support for those students, no matter what screen you're on, sharing or not, that live transcript will appear right there. So you can turn that on, reach out for help. I'm not going to explain it right now. I'm limited on time, but just reach out if that support is helpful for you. And then another feature is that the chat display, you can have the size of the chat increase if the size is too small. And this is on the desktop client. So you would double click on Zoom on your desktop. And then over on the left, it says accessibility in blue. And then you'll find these features here. And then you can scoot down to the screen to see if any of those additional features are also helpful for you. In order to find closed captioning in PowerPoint, I'll refer you to this slide and then you can come back and read it again if needed. And this is how you would turn those features on. From the second screen, you would turn on the subtitles or closed captioning in this region. And then the closed captioning would appear where you determine or want it to appear. You get to click in the settings to state if you want it to overlap your presentation or if you want it to be below. And then in my presentation, because I'm using Google Slides, I used the captions button right here, and then Google used my voice and then transferred it into language. And you saw it live on the screen already, but there's a little picture of what that looks like. Additional resources, we have more links for you if that's helpful. Several web links that will provide you additional timers. Karina provided one link in the chat for the Common Core sheets, and there are several resources in there. She also provided the PhET simulation, and that's where Kelly was able to use the area builder. I'm not going to read through this entire thing, but everything you see on the screen represents a link that will provide more resources for you. I have 3 additional videos right here. If you are teaching upper division, I don't want to call it upper division math. If you're teaching 5th and 6th grade math and you're using square root and you're using parentheses and you're using a variety of different symbols, Microsoft Word offers in the drawing feature math translation. So you can scribble it on the screen and it's going to instantly translate it into clear, legible text for you. It would have been my part 3 video that I didn't get around to. So I have part 1 and part 2 of how to use Microsoft Word as a whiteboard. And then Microsoft Whiteboard is available in some, but not all of our computers. And I teach you how to use that as an additional resource. It's not specifically Zoom, but you can use them in your Zoom lesson. And then the video based on today's lesson will be available inside of that curriculum instruction and accountability website. We have that link on the screen right there. Be careful, all capitals in that URL must be capitalized in order for you to reach that link. And then the orange arrow is pointing to the Zoom video conference. You will find today's video there. Give Sherry about 5 to 7 days to get that video ready, and then she'll drop it in there for you. And then I clicked on the next slide. So you either have permission to drop those questions in the chat space, or you can unmute yourself. I'm going to skim over those last 4 slides, and then I will stop the presentation. If I have not said thank you already, we are so delighted that you joined us today. You took time out of your day to be here, and we are so thankful for that. If you want to provide us any feedback, I am Melissa Culver, and you can find me inside of your email. Karina Cantrell is the other presenter from today, and so she is more than welcome to answer some of those questions for you, or your local IT coach. Feel free to reach out and let us know how we can serve or help you. And then the template from today's presentation came from Slides Mania. Those slides are free and available to you if you are looking for resources for PowerPoint or Google. Then you can download those templates if needed. I'm going to click stop sharing.